Okay, Council, we are live. I've unmuted everybody and we can begin the meeting.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call this City of Blue Ash Council meeting to order for Thursday, May 14th. The opening ceremonies would be the Pledge of Allegiance, and when we all do it together, it creates havoc. So, Councilman Lee, would you like to do the Pledge of Allegiance for all of us?
Absolutely, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, thank you. Let's go through the roll call. Jamie, will you call the roll?
Councilman Jeff Capel.
Here.
Councilman Lee Zerwanka. Are you muted?
Here.
Thanks. Vice Mayor Pramod Javeri.
Here.
Councilman Joe Leet.
Here.
Councilwoman Katie Schneider.
Here.
Councilwoman Nikki Yasek-Schweeder.
Here.
Mayor Mark Serkin.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept tonight's agenda?
So move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We have a public hearing to consider a final development plan for a new office building and site development in the Summit Park subdivision. This is resolution 2020-23. Jamie, can you read it by title only?
Approving a final development plan for a new office building and site development in the Summit Park subdivision in the Parkview portion of the neighborhood Summit Park subdivision in the Summit Park zoning district.
Thank you. The Planning Commission recommended approval at their May 7th, 2020 meeting. We're going to have a presentation from Summit View Development. Council will have a chance to answer questions and make comments. And then citizens wishing to comment on this item will have 2 weeks following the public hearing to provide feedback by email. Email that to administration@blueash.com. And then the project will be voted on at the next City Council meeting, likely that will be May 28th. We have Doug Kramer, Steve Dragon, Tom Wilson, and Kevin Dickey here. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Kelly, if you could switch to the next slide, please. Thank you for the opportunity to present the details of the planned office building under these unique circumstances. My name is Tom Wilson. I'm the Director of Real Estate Development for Alnire. As I mentioned, we also have Steve Dragon, who's the Vice President at Vanderkar Holdings. Together, our two firms are the Summit View master developers of the neighborhoods at Summit Park. Also with me is Doug Kramer, who's the Vice President of Nair Architect, and Kevin Dickey, our landscape architect from MKSK. Kelly, if you could go to the next slide, thank you. We're here tonight to seek final development plan approval for a 3-building, 75,000 square foot Class A multi-tenant office building. The proposed building will be located within the Parkside neighborhood of the development and on a lot adjacent to the senior living facility that is currently under construction. The building will be positioned at the intersection of the future extensions of Summit Parkway, which runs on the border of Summit Park and Carver Woods Drive. Initially, this will be the first office building, but plans allow for the potential to increase density by adding 2 other office buildings of approximately 75,000 square feet and 90,000 square feet in a campus style format, with adding structured parking within this block. This will be the first of many market driven office buildings that we envision for the overall site. Kelly, if you could switch to the next one. The Summit View office building will have vehicular access from public roadway systems, which include Summit Parkway, Carver Woods Drive, Gateway Place. Portions of these roads have been constructed to date. Future phases will be constructed before the completion of the construction of this office building. The building will utilize the existing regional detention basin for its stormwater management. Pedestrian access into the building will be from Summit Parkway and from the surface parking lot at the rear of the building. Upon full build out, the parking areas for this building will be well screened from vision from along Summit Parkway. It's anticipated that this building will be leased by multiple tenants ranging in size from 3,000 square feet up to 50,000 square feet. The building is uniquely situated to have the benefit of having tremendous views of the park and also being within walking distance of the commercial uses and restaurants located within the approach, which is our mixed-use building that's under construction, and as well as the amenities of Summit Park. Tenants will have the ability to enjoy the outdoor seating areas at street level, as well as elevated balconies for meetings and collaboration. And this building is currently being marketed by CBRE. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Doug Kramer. Doug is an architect for Nair Architects. He and his team designed this fantastic building, and he's going to walk through some of the amenities of the buildings and some of the issues with the site that we'd like to share with you.
Thanks, Tom. Good evening, council members. As Tom mentioned, the building under consideration is at the intersection of Summit Parkway and Carver Woods Drive. That is the building in the upper left-hand corner of the slide that is currently being presented. Vehicular access is proposed from Summit Parkway, Carver Woods Drive, as well as Gateway Drive. The design intent is that these buildings are placed along Summit Parkway. They're pulled up to Summit Parkway, similar to the buildings that are already under construction or just finishing construction further along Summit Parkway. The entry drive between the two buildings, the proposed building and the future building, terminates at a round structure labeled 04 in the slide. That's the shared refuse enclosure that we envision to be clad in a brick that matches the office building that we're proposing, as well as the access doors having a metal that matches the rooftop screen that obscures the rooftop mechanical equipment that would be mounted to the roof. The landscaping approach that we've taken is similar to the planting materials used throughout the Summit Park development, as well as within the park itself. We've provided full landscape plans as part of the submittal. This is just a rendered graphic depicting some of the plantings within the development. There was a question in regards to accommodating the proposed roundabout at Gateway and Carver Woods Drive. We have dashed in the right-of-way line in the lower right-hand corner of this slide, showing how we can accommodate that right-of-way. We did adjust the parking in that corner of the site to make sure that the roundabout can happen in the future with this scheme. Kelly, if you would go to the next slide, please. As part of that conversation with Planning Commission last week, there were questions regarding how this block fully builds out with all three buildings. So you see at the top of the image, the two buildings from the previous slide, both 75,000 square feet. They would both be 3 stories. And then in this slide, we've added a future building, also 3 stories along Carver Woods Drive. And to bring the parking density up to market at or a little above 4 cars per 1,000 square feet, we're placing a garage along Parkside Drive. Also in this slide, we've dashed in the future right-of-way for the roundabout at Gateway Drive and Carver Woods Drive, showing that this plan can be built out should the right-of-way be needed for the roundabout. Next slide, please. This is a perspective rendering taken along Summit Parkway. Carver Woods Drive is just off to the right in the image. You see the future building in the background of this image. We took careful consideration to think about the materials used on the project. We have a beige brick for the typical brick areas, a dark brick base that you'll see in some of the other slides, a wood veneer that accentuates entry into the building, as well as you can see in this slide, extensive glass and metal curtain wall system. Kelly, next slide. This is a view from the parking lot side, the south side of the building. Carver Woods Drive would be just off to the left of the view. Continuation of the same materials that were discussed in the previous slide. Beige brick, dark brick base, wood veneer to signify entry. The beige brick comes from looking at the colors and textures that are in the park buildings and wanting to tie that in to the park buildings and create some harmony and dialogue with the buildings, but not take away from the park buildings. These are certainly very important buildings to the city and its residents. And so we're trying to create a dialogue, but not overtake that. And yet at the same time, we recognize that this is a very important building for Summit Park development. It is creating the first office building for the development. It needs to create the standard from which future office buildings are built. So we take that very seriously as we've looked at the design and the proportions used in the building. Next slide. This is taken also from the parking lot side, just over to the middle of the development, just showing some of the brick and wood. Kelly, next slide. This is the west elevation. The street in the foreground is Carver Woods Drive. Again, you see the brick and the glass curtain wall at the corner of the building. Kelly, next slide. This is the east elevation, and here you can see the dark brick base. In certain areas of the park buildings, there's a course of the stone that's a darker color that helps to anchor those buildings to the ground. So we've taken that as inspiration to provide a brick base that goes from the foundation line up to the sill line of the first floor to help provide a base for the building. You can see also we're using that wood veneer material here at the stair tower and the door located at the stair. Kelly, next slide. This is a detailed rendering of the pedestrian entry along Summit Parkway and the outdoor space, the amenity space that we've created at grade. And as Tom mentioned, also outdoor spaces on the second and third floors for those office users. We recognize that the outdoor spaces are what makes the park and the development so fantastic. We want to continue that with this development and set the standard for the office buildings that are to come in the future. Next slide. This is a rendering along Summit Parkway. You see the entry drive going into the development. The round dumpster enclosure is just off the slide there. Again, use of the brick and the extensive use of glass for the development. Next slide. These are the 2D rendered elevations. I think what's important to discuss with this slide is the use of four-sided architecture. All of the materials are being utilized around all four sides of the building. There isn't a back to this building the way that it is going to be experienced. So we've taken that on by using the materials throughout all four elevations. And these elevations also call out the rooftop screening to conceal the mechanical equipment. Next slide. As part of our submission, we annotated this enlarged rendering to just show the allocation of the materials that we've already discussed, creating the palette that is sort of crescendos at the pedestrian entries into the building on both the north side, which is shown here, and the south side, which we've seen previously. Next slide. Since we weren't able to submit physical materials, we've provided these digital samples for consideration. We can certainly follow up with physical samples as we get further along in the process. But these break down in the upper left-hand corner, the dark brick base in a linear format brick. Upper right, the beige brick. The lower left is a wood material. There is wood used in the park buildings, and similar to the beige brick, looking to tie these buildings together, create some harmony and dialogue between them. we thought it was important to introduce the wood into this building. And then finally, in the lower right, glass that we see as a highly transparent glass, and the color of the glass comes from the low E coating that creates energy performance and allows a building with so much glass to be energy efficient. Next slide. We haven't just considered this building as something that exists within the block, that it sits just on its own. We've thought about it in the context of the rest of the Summit Park development and also the park itself. So this is a photo taken from the north end of the park with the restaurant pavilion there on the right, or I'm sorry, the left-hand side. And in the background, just right of center, is the proposed building. So we really have thought about how this building is going to be experienced, not just from the street grid, but also from the park itself. And Kelly, if you go to the next slide. Taken closer to the observation tower, you see that just on the right-hand side there, the proposed building in the background, just left of center. So again, thinking about how this building fits in, ties into the aesthetic that's been used within the park and the development, but also creating a standard from which we can do future office buildings. With that, I'll turn it back over to Tom. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. So at this time, that's the end of really our presentation. Happy to answer any questions that anybody may have on what we presented tonight. But we're very excited about this building. We think it's a phenomenal looking building, and by far one of the nicest buildings in the city. So we're excited.
Well, thank you all. If my council mates don't mind, I'll just call on everybody one at a time and we'll go through. And then if anybody has more comments, we can go backwards. So, Joe, would you like to start off? Any comments?
You say me?
Yeah. Joe, Councilman.
On page 14, Doug, you talk about the glass, the high energy glass. And I'm just wondering, I think, yeah, even that view there, it shows the sun shining out, and you talk about that being energy absorbent for the inside. Will that create a magnifying glass to the park people?
No, we don't believe so. The glass itself is low reflectivity. It is not a mirrored glass.
Okay, that answers the question. Yeah, okay. That was the only one I had.
All right. Councilman Capel.
Everything seems pretty straightforward to me. I think the only question that I'd have is maybe just kind of clarifying or getting you to restate what I think I saw. So if I'm reading everything correctly, right now you're proposing one office building in that kind of rectangular area with surface parking, but in the future we could accommodate up to 3 office buildings in that rectangular area with a parking garage. Is that correct?
That is correct, Jeff. Initially, we're just asking for approval for this first building, and then in the future, we would come back with the second and third building, and we would convert from surface parking to a structured parking format.
Okay, yeah, that was my only question.
Yep, thank you.
All right. Councilman Zerwanko.
Guys, I think you've done a phenomenal job on design here. I'm impressed. It shows dimension, color, texture, and it's a great architecture design. And I think it fits very well within the confines of the park area there too. So nice job. I'm very pleased with it.
Thank you.
Thank you for the compliments. Doug and his
Vice
team.
Mayor Jabari. PJ,
Yes, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I have 2 questions. First one is that what you gonna name this building, and where that name is going to be has not put it down in these drawings. And the second question I have is in a front entry plaza. On the right-hand side, you have those chairs and tables with the umbrella in them and everything. Is this you planning to do some restaurant underneath of the building?
So PJ, for your first question, so with this submittal, we have not submitted our signage package. In the past, we've gone through a signage package for other parts of the development. We would probably replicate that to a certain extent, but with this submittal, we haven't submitted the package for the specific zoning for the building. We would envision it to be a combination of ground mounted signs, potentially with multiple tenant names on there. And that we would like to consider the opportunity to have a naming right on the building, probably driven by a large anchor tenant. But we would utilize some of the signage requirements that we've previously had approved and probably slim them down for this part of the environment, which is less of a commercial active area. So right now we're calling it the Summit View Office Building. Certainly if a tenant came along that wanted to name it something else, we'd certainly consider that. But for now, the name of it is the Summit View Office Building.
Okay, what about the second question?
Is, no, that area is really intended for tenants of the building for basically seating areas, and we don't intend it to be for use of restaurant at this time. We think all of the users within that building will be office users, and that patio area will be for the use of tenants within that building or visitors to that building. But don't anticipate at this point that it would be a retail user.
I just want to add to what Lee just said, that this fits our this fits the prescription of what we're looking for in the park, and you have done a very nice job. In the past, Tom, I have sent you some pictures of how we are looking for, or what I was looking for, some fancy building for the office building, and I think this will do the job. I like it, and it really enhance. And you guys have done a great job.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Councilwoman Yazbek Schweeder.
Well, I'm going to echo some of those same compliments. I think the building is very attractive. I especially like the wood element and on the sides, and not really having a specific entry point, but having that on all sides, and the outdoor spaces that have been added in the pictures that you've shown. Very, very nice. And I think it's going to be a nice addition to the Summit Park. I really do. I think thumbs up. It's really nice. Really, really nice.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Councilwoman Schneider. Oh, I think Schneider. We're going to first names again.
Yeah, I agree. The attention to detail is wonderful. The materials, the landscaping next to you. So the first slide that you showed, the parking lot looks to be pretty prominent and larger than anything else that you see in the development. But then later on you showed, because there's the potential to build several more buildings. So I can understand that. My one question on that is, if the roundabout does happen, it cuts into a lot of that corner with the landscaping. If there's a future building there or not, will you accommodate for that and move the landscaping further in to try to add more of that to hide some of the building?
So Doug, I don't know if you want to answer that question. Councilwoman, you can see the dash line here. I don't know if you can see that on the screen. In that lower corner, there it is. So that would be kind of the right-of-way line for the roundabout. So some of that landscaping would be impacted. But I think visually, that's kind of the outer edge of, sidewalks and things going through there with the impact of the roundabout. Is your concern the corner of that building, or just want to make sure I understand your question?
Yeah, just how close it is, and but it looks like you're accommodating for that. So yeah, that was my only feedback. I mean, everything else, it looks very, very well designed. I like how it fits in with the rest of the development. Everything just seems like you've really thought out everything every piece of that. So great job.
Thank you.
So it's almost identical to the concept plan. I love the glass, and it doesn't seem to crowd the park either when you have those elevations from far away. Love the variety, the style, the architecture. It's just a winner. So thank you very much. Does any other council people have any other questions they want to go back to? PJ?
Yes. By in the past, in concept plan, you have shown that there's going to be another office building on the corner of Reed Hartman and Glendon Milford Road. Is this still planning? I know this is not the subject to talk right now, but
Yeah.
you already mentioning 3 buildings here. So I'm just wondering that, are you going to put down another commercial building on that side?
So PJ, our plans for the area called the district, which is the area that you're referring to at the corner of Glendale Milford Road and Reed Hartman Highway, the plans have not changed
Yes.
there at all. At this point, we still
Yes.
envision between 200 and 400,000 square feet at the corner and potentially another 130,000 square foot office building in there as well. So really nothing changed. We just, with the tenants that we've been talking to, or potential tenants that we've been talking to, this location seemed to be more of an interest. They liked the fact that they had both the combination of being directly across from the park, the views, and then being, a 2-block walk down to the restaurants in the commercial area. So initially this was one we thought would maybe come further down the road, but in talking to the tenants and the prospective tenants, this is a location that's kind of risen to the top here. And I think it's partly because of the design, but the combination of being, directly across from the park, having those views of the park, and then still being
Yes.
within walking distance of everything else is very, very appealing and very unique.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Anybody else want to make any more comments? If not, we'll close the public hearing. And just remember, any citizens wanting to make any comments on this would address them to administration@blueash.com.
What was that?
I'm hearing a voice in the background. Administration@blueash.com. David or Kelly, do you have any other comments you want to make about this project?
I do not.
No?
Are they?
Oh, okay. David's. maybe
Yeah,
lost
so,
it. Here we go.
yeah, I'm sorry. Hopefully you're hearing me now. So yeah, I would echo a lot of your sentiments. Planning Commission also recommended approval of it, and certainly working with the Nair design team, I agree that they've hit on a lot of the design elements, and it complements our own architecture over there. So not much else to add to that.
Okay. Let's move on then. Thank you, everybody, from some of you. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of April 23rd, 2020?
So moved.
A second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
All right, we're gonna move to communications. Jamie, do you have any communications to council?
There are none tonight, Your Honor.
Do we have any reports from outside agencies? No? The mayor's report will be entered into the public record from April 2020. Do I have a motion to accept the financial report from April of 2020?
So moved.
So second,
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 We have a proclamation for Public Works Week. They're kind of our unsung heroes. Well, Gordon, that's what I look at you as, an unsung hero. You're so good at maintaining our infrastructure that, sometimes we kind of forget that you're even in the background, but it takes an incredible amount of planning and flexibility to run this city so well. And so there's a proclamation for Public Works Week, and I'm going to read just a little bit of it to you. Whereas public works services in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and the support and understanding of informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works. Programs such as water, sewers, streets, highways, sidewalks, bike paths, facility, solid waste collection, snow removal, and waste reduction activities like recycling, and the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depend on these facilities and services. I, Mark Serkin, Mayor of the City of Blue Ash, hereby proclaim May 17th through May 23rd, 2020 as Public Works Week in the City of Blue Ash, Ohio, and hereby call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the challenges involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contribution that public works officials and personnel make every day to our health, safety, and comfort. You know, sometimes we don't think of public works as being a first responders until there's a flood, tornado, fire, sewers, and things like that. So from all of us, thank you, Gordon, to you and all your staff.
Thank you, Gordon.
Let's move on to committee reports. Finance and Administration, Lisa Wonka, Chairperson.
Jamie, please read resolution number 2020-20 by title only.
Providing for amendments within the 2020 annual appropriation resolution number 2019-62.
Move to adopt resolution number 2020-20. Do I have a second?
Second. Second.
Any discussion? Jamie, please call the roll.
Councilman Lee,
Yes.
Councilwoman Yasbek Schweiner,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Javari,
Yes.
Councilman Zerwanka,
Yes.
Councilman Capel,
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider,
Yes.
Mayor Serkin,
Yes.
7 yeses.
Jamie, please read resolution number 2020-21 by title only.
Authorizing the city manager to negotiate and enter into an agreement for the purchase of real property, including the entirety of parcels 612-0050-0546, 612-0050-0547, 612-0050-0343, 612-0050-0342, and 612-0050-0341 of the Hamilton County Auditor's Office records consisting of approximately 2.44 acres.
Move to adopt resolution number 2020-21.
Second.
Any
Second.
discussion? Any discussion?
I would say I've had some very enthusiastic thank yous to the city for taking this action. People that have lived here a long time and have watched that downtown are very excited. So I'm
Yeah,
glad we went down this
In
road.
reference, this is the Hosbrook property, by the way. The old gas station for everybody who understands that. Any other comments?
Couple questions that I have. One is, do we know the environmental situation of that property, if there is any cleanup required, and if there is any environmental remediation needed, who would be responsible for paying that?
So we're
Last
working
fall,
through
I
that.
know that they, go ahead, David. Go ahead, Dave.
You're muted, David.
Kelly's over, I think Kelly's trying to override me there at the main station.
Trying to unmute
Yeah,
you.
so we are working through that due diligence as we speak. Preliminarily, it looks like the site has been recently remediated. We've received some preliminary reports about the remediation on that. There is an environmental law specialty law firm in Columbus that worked with the seller on this. So we're in the process of getting that and reviewing that. But the good news is it looks like it's mostly been remediated, and we don't anticipate many problems.
If there is some still environmental remediation needed. Would the seller have to take care of that before selling it to us, or would we be on the hook in addition to the $4.3 million that we're spending to acquire the property?
Yeah, until we are done with that due diligence, we just haven't negotiated that yet.
Okay, so then the 4.3 million may not be the entire amount we would have to pay if the negotiation somehow meant that we'd be paying some environmental remediation cost as well.
It's possible, but I don't think in our anticipation that is going to be the case, that we would pay more than that. It's likely that we would discuss that in further, but until we've had a chance to review that, it's just premature to comment much on that.
And then on the financial side, since we are paying, according to the legislation, it would be up to $4.3 million for a little over 2.5 acres, which is a substantial amount, and was also quite a bit more than the market value of a nearby lot that's sold. Have we done any kind of financial analysis to determine maybe how many jobs we would be able to realistically get on this site, so that we could kind of figure out what kind of payback period we would have for this to make financial sense?
Yeah, well, to answer your first question, as you know, because we've discussed this before, the funds that we have available for that, there is that is available under the capital reserve funds that we have, so that's not a concern. As for any pro forma on there, as you're aware, council is in a position where we want to examine what that would be, and you'll have the opportunity to look at that pro forma, as you, as part of council, will help develop that pro forma over the next few months or a year in working on that redevelopment site.
Okay, yeah, it just kind of brings me to where I'm at. I'm kind of mixed on this issue. On one hand, it is a very key piece of property, so there are obvious benefits to the city outright owning it and then having full discretion as to what goes on there. But on the flip side, I'd be a lot more comfortable if the price was closer to what I thought was more of a market value, and if we knew more about any potential environmental costs that could be there. And then also if we had a better idea of how many jobs realistically can we put there, so we know how much earnings tax it brings in. It just gets to looking at it from an investment perspective. If you put $1 million into an investment and you're getting back $100,000 a year, that's pretty good. A 10% return is fantastic. But then if you put $1 million into an investment and then it turns out you net $20,000 a year out of it, that's a very low return, and it becomes a lot less attractive at that point. So that's kind of the struggle I'm seeing on this right now.
Yeah, like I said, you'll have the opportunity to help determine that pro forma, and there's always different ways to look at that pro forma. As for the market value, we have confirmed that property has been under contract for that amount. That's been the listed value. You're not paying more than the listed and accepted value on that. It is a percentage more than the adjacent property, but upon further review, that valuation has been confirmed, in as much as they had another purchaser lined up for it that fell apart for non-financial reasons.
Okay.
Any other further comment? Seeing none, Jamie, please call the roll.
Councilman Capel,
Yes.
Councilwoman Yasvik Schweeder,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Javari,
Yes.
Councilman Leet,
Absolutely.
Councilwoman Schneider,
Yes.
Councilman Zerwanka,
Yes.
Mayor Serkin,
Yes.
7 yeses.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning Committee, Vice Mayor Javari, Chairperson.
Okay, Jamie, can you read resolution number 2020-22 by title only?
Approving a plat to allow Chick-fil-A to dedicate right-of-way to the city of Blue Ash totaling 0.2322 acres.
Move to adopt the resolution number 2020-22. Anybody has any questions, discussion?
We need a second.
Can you second, somebody has to second, please?
Second.
Okay, anybody has any questions? Any discussion on this property? If it's not, I have one question. I don't know who's gonna answer this, but when I see the last page of drawing, I have a drawing here for the sidewalk. So sidewalk is continuing from their property. But the sidewalk does come through all the way Cornell Road to that property, or just that much they're gonna provide us?
If I think
do you know
I
what I'm
understand your
talking
question,
about?
you're asking, does this, I think you're
Yes.
asking if the sidewalk's gonna go all the way to Cornell, and yes, Gordon plans on coordinating and completing the rest of that sidewalk down to Cornell.
Okay, that's it. That was my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Jamie, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Schneider,
Yes.
Councilman Lee,
Yes.
Councilwoman Yazbek Schweeder,
Yes.
Councilman Capel,
Yes.
Councilman Zerwanka,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Javari,
Yes,
Mayor Serkin,
Yes,
7 yeses.
that's all I have, Mayor.
thank you. Public Safety Committee, Jeff Capel, Chairperson.
Yes, Jamie, please read ordinance number 2020-3 by title only.
Amending and enacting certain sections of Part 3 Traffic Code and Part 5 General Offenses Code and declaring an emergency.
And do we have a motion to suspend the rules requiring a second reading?
So move.
Second,
Is there a second? Okay.
I say second.
Got it. Then do we need a roll call on that or just a voice?
Yes, roll call.
Roll call. Okay. Yeah, if you can please call the roll.
Councilman Lee,
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Javari,
Yes,
Councilwoman Yazbek Schweeder,
Yes.
Councilman Capel,
Yes.
Councilman Zerwanka,
Yes.
Mayor Serkin,
Yes,
7 yeses.
Okay, and now that we're in the substance of the legislation, let me just get my standard question on something like this out of the way.
Make a motion to adopt.
Oh, yeah, that would be a good idea, wouldn't it? I move that we adopt the ordinance 2020-3.
Second.
Okay, great. Now that we have the motion properly on the floor, let me ask my standard question that basically we're not making, just if I'm correct here, we're not making any new policies here. We're really just adjusting our language to be compliant with recent changes in the state code, if I'm understanding correctly.
That's correct, Jeff.
Great. Yeah, this one, I think it was a particularly good one to ask when you see words in there about controlled substances and skateboards and speed limits. We don't want to panic people and think we've completely redefined the laws on how we live in Blue Ash. Does anybody else have any comment on this before we vote? Hearing none, Jamie, please call the roll.
Councilman Zerwanka,
Yes.
Councilman Lee,
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Javari,
yes,
Councilwoman Yazbek Schweeder,
Yes.
Councilman Capel,
Yes.
Mayor Serkin,
yes,
7 yeses.
thank you much. All right. Believe we're going to move to miscellaneous business. David, do you want to start off?
Yeah, I do have a handful of things I want to touch on. As you just reiterate, as you saw in the council memo packet, we are diligently examining the budget and the impact of this. There's still a lot of variability. On the plus side, we actually were a little bit ahead of collections in the first quarter, so that gives us a little bit of cushion. We've also had some operational offsets and what have you. But there are some challenges in terms of we have a lack of clarity with delayed tax filings and lag of some funding collections will lag 60, 90 days behind, so we won't know the impact of that. So the good news, if you want to say good news, is we certainly have the ability to weather the storm. We certainly don't intend to not make any other adjustments. You've seen even last week we eliminated the red, white, and blue ash for both health reasons as well as it's certainly a savings opportunity. So there's a number of things that are unfolding as we speak. We feel confident that that we can weather the storm. That doesn't mean we won't take a couple of bruises along the way, and we'll have a better sense of it shortly. Within the next couple weeks, we will start to have gone through a full 45, 60-day cycle in which things would lag, and we'll have a better feel for that. But what I will say is, just from a kind of a community standpoint and a leadership standpoint, as I see other communities and even really, I guess, more pertinent at the state and federal level, not to dump on them, but I really appreciate the leadership that this council's provided. And the definition of leadership sometimes is just remaining calm, not adding to the anxiety, not politicizing the moment and the environment. And this council's done a really good job of just taking a deep breath and saying, let's just weigh our way through there. Let's allow the leadership by our department heads, who's the second one I want to acknowledge as part of this process. Our department heads have done an amazing job. I always knew we had a strong group of department heads, but you can imagine something like this is really not about the city manager directing all the little things. It really is a combination of everyone. Speaking, one particular department has taken a brunt. I know that the mayor has given Public Works kudos for Public Works next week, but the other department that has really had to make a lot of adjustments, you heard a little bit of conversation before we started, is a few weeks ago, they're laying off 100 people, and now in a few weeks, we're bringing back perhaps X number of people. We don't know what's opening or closing, and that's been the rec department. They certainly have had to experience the most variability, to take nothing away from police and fire, who have to deal with potentially sick people and what have you. But those operations, at least, were able to kind of continue their operation in a sense of normalcy. The Public Works, facility and maintenance had to make some adjustments, but Parks and Rec certainly had to go through a wide range of emotions and adjustments. And so, again, I would say all of our department heads have done really well. Sherry and Kelly do an amazing job with leading the administrative side of things. So in addition to council leadership, just want to throw that out there with our department head leadership through this process, and further ask for your indulgence over the next few weeks. We heard an announcement that gyms and rec centers may be opening. It's going to be a flood of questions to you. What's next? What everything's going to go on, and it's certainly going to continue to take us time to work through that, and we may not always get it right, but I'm pretty confident we'll get there pretty fast. So the other thing I want to offer or give you an update on, the last meeting, or perhaps the meeting before, all these Zoom meetings are starting to blend in all day long and all night long of Zoom meeting. We gave a presentation on the town square improvements. One of the feedback the council said is make sure we engage with our veteran community. And so Brian Cruz and I did have a Zoom meeting today with the American Legion. Happy to say they were very supportive of it. Actually gave us some really some nice little tweaks and additional ideas should we choose option B and relocate the memorial. There was some additional enhancements they suggested that really made sense to help that would help with the ceremonial part of Memorial Day parades and the ceremony after that, or Veterans Day and what have you. So it was really nice talking to them. There was one person who had some concern, but it was less to do with the memorial. He just had some concerns about the town square being renovated at all. I would describe him as, seemed to kind of be more interested in preserving the existing character, but overwhelmingly, certainly through the leadership of the American Legion, it seemed to us, we were communicated that they had strong support, and like I said, gave us some feedback on some tweaks to the new concept of the Veterans Memorial and a timeline walkthrough and what have you. So we were very heartened by that. The next to last thing before I throw this over to Kelly is tomorrow you will see Flags Half Staff. Tomorrow is Peace Officers Memorial Day, and so that's a tribute to our police officers and those who often, unfortunately, passed away in the line of duty, including the young lady over in Springdale recently. So when you see a Flag Half Staff tomorrow, take a moment to thank our police officers, led in Blue Ash in particular by a very capable Chief Scott Knoll. So with that, I'm going to throw this over to Kelly, and as I do, I just set her up a little bit. And that is, so one of the things that Kelly and her staff and myself have been working on is, okay, in addition to the internal city operations and how we work things, what things should we be thinking about and working with our community and primarily we're talking from a community development or economic development perspective. Neil has reached out to lots and lots of our businesses, trying to find the status of them, secretly really trying to figure out how many people they furloughed so they can budget for that. But in addition, really asking them, how are things going and what have you. And for the most part, what I can say is we get a sense that the corporate community, while having their challenges, seems to actually be doing a little bit better than normal. It's the non-corporate community that there may be some challenges for us. So we started talking about what would we do in supporting them outside of the typical thing of funds and what have you. So Kelly's going to give you some concepts and ideas and some things that are in front of us that might be an opportunity and for council from a policy standpoint to kind of point us in a direction you like or don't like. So with that, Kelly, why don't you go ahead and take the floor?
Thanks, David. So we have been taking a look at the market and what was successful pre-COVID, and also what do we think is going to be successful after COVID. And we noticed the last couple of years a bit of a softening in the office market. And you might recall in 2017 when we updated the zoning code, we really had an office heavy focus, specifically in the Summit Park zoning district. We decided not to allow light industrial or manufacturing in that district. And what we're seeing is all of the prospects coming through READY, the Regional Economic Development Initiative, tend to be those light industrial manufacturing type of projects. And so we're thinking we might have maybe placed a little too much emphasis on the office. And so we wanted to get council's reaction to whether or not in the sort of fringe areas of the Summit Park district, if we should be reevaluating that. So I don't mean neighborhoods at Summit Park, I don't mean Reed Hartman Highway, but Mallsbury Road, Alliance Road, where council's already passed at least one PUD, and Board of Zoning Appeals has already lightened up those restrictions as well for a company called Omnicable, as you might remember. So I just wanted to get council's reaction to if they think that's appropriate. We're not looking to encourage warehousing. This would be some sort of advanced manufacturing, still an employment center, but different than a typical office type of job. Any reaction to that idea?
Well, if we're talking east of Reed Hartman, which is what I think you were talking about, that would seem to make sense. Definitely something to at least at a minimum continue looking at.
Then anybody have any reaction that we shouldn't be doing that and we should stay the course with the current code?
My question is that, hello?
Yes.
Yeah, my question is that, do we have a lot of square feet? empty space on the east side of what we're talking about? And if it is, how much it is, and we can do something like certain portion of that, we can allow some manufacturing, certain portion, we cannot, we can go into that direction. So can you tell me, do we have a lot of square feet buildings out there, a lot of grounds out there, which is empty or something like that?
Well,
Plots
PJ,
are-
I think that, I'm sorry, Kelly, I think that's a good question by itself, but I think another perspective, instead of like just, okay, how many square feet and should we calculate that? I think a general broad question for you is, as Kelly said, in an attempt to diversify our economy, and what we are seeing is a number of job opportunities recently and in the foreseeable future probably are going to be non-office. So whether you have the square footage or not, I think the policy question is, do you want to diversify our economy, or do you want to simply rely on it from an office perspective, which faces a little bit of threat, right? As people are working more from home, there might be less demand and what have you. So I think it became clear to us, not only as Kelly gave some examples of how recently we ended up providing some waivers anyway, it became clear to us looking ahead that that might be an opportunity for some growth on some non-premier property anyway. So typically these aren't main property we're referring to. And so I think that's really the perspective you ought to be thinking about. And that if you think that's something worth looking into, then we would start coming back to you with some tweaks to the code.
David, my thoughts are, I think we need to keep things a little bit on the flexible side here. Case by case, opportunity by opportunity. Times are always going to be changing. Demographics are always going to be changing. So, I think it's something to consider going forward. You just don't know how the dynamics of the office space are going to hold up over time versus manufacturing, or light manufacturing in this case. I'd be flexible to it.
We use the word
It's
flexible.
obvious. In my opinion on this, I think, Kelly, you're right on, because the office space is a dying breed. I mean, a lot of people are working from home, and with what's going on now, we're going to learn new ways of doing things. But people are always going to need stuff made. They're always going to want something made. So I agree with your pathway, Kelly, Dave. Yes.
I think, Nikki, did you have a comment?
I do. Lee used the word flexible, and I was going to use the word open, but same thing. I definitely think that we can't, or we should not be closed-minded. I think we should definitely be looking at that, because I agree. Things are changing now, and with the recent COVID situation, definitely, I think office space, and that is definitely going to be affected in the long term. So for our own sake, we need to be open to that.
Yeah, I know I've mentioned at prior meetings over the past couple of years, this issue as well, where if more and more of the workforce either is working from home or has the option to work from home full-time or part-time, and then we're sitting around with a ton of office buildings, and the vast majority of our employees who work in Blue Ash don't live in Blue Ash, then we'll be left with a lot of empty space if we go too heavy on the office and don't recognize that the economy is changing and will more rapidly change to allowing these traditional office jobs to work from home.
Great. Thank you. I did just also want to make council aware that Hamilton County is launching a small business assistant fund. These are grants of up to $10,000 per business. They have some information on their website. The details are forthcoming. Maybe tomorrow we'll have some more information about that. So we're certainly promoting that to Blue Ash businesses, as they would be eligible to apply. And then you also may already be aware that some Blue Ash restaurants have reached out to staff, and we expect to hear from more regarding allowing some flexibility for outdoor dining in order to keep with the health guidelines. And so what we'd like to do, we have the authority under the emergency declaration by the city manager to allow some of that to happen. It doesn't otherwise meet code, but we can make some supplemental procedures during this time to allow for flexibility. And we just wanted to give you a heads up on that, and also ask in advance for some maybe forgiveness if it doesn't turn out quite as we had hoped. You might see things like tents that you don't love and seating and all of that, but we do think it's appropriate at this time to be as flexible as possible, both for the health and safety of our citizens, our patrons, as well as economic viability for the community. Oh, sorry, Mark, you're on mute.
There we go. I'm sorry. No, I think we need to be as flexible as possible and help the restaurants get back on their feet as quick as we can. And, for the next few months, let's just, really be understanding.
Agreed.
I think one of the key things we would, just to give you some sense of comfort, is I think we would only be working with them on things that are temporary and non-permanent, and that can dissipate when the executive orders go away. And so we're not talking about anything outlandish where restaurants would be skirting some significantly rules in terms of heavy infrastructure on the building and what have you. It's just more on things that are what I would describe are temporary and non-permanent.
Was the plan to work with, kind of come up with general guidelines and push that out to the businesses, or rather work with them on one-on-one basis with their unique location situation to see what they propose?
Yeah, so we plan to just let them come to us with our needs, and Dan Johnson will offer some sort of feedback if needed, and if not, just a letter of allowance for the time period.
Katie, that's a great question. I think given how fluid and quick moving this is, our ability to even envision and write a set of guidelines for every case would be very difficult. And so just think about the range of, you've got a restaurant, let's just say, one of the requests is Mark's Bagel. So very small restaurant in a tight plaza, not a whole lot of parking there. So their ability to do something is in the set of rules we would write for them would be radically different than Through the Garden, which is on its own site and much more spread out. They may be able to do something different. So that's why we probably would deal with them on spaces.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to allow flexibility, and especially if we're just going as far as allowing these businesses to expand their outdoor footprint up to a point. Though what we just want to avoid is, I'm not going to name the name, but there was a nearby local government that created basically a big old drinking zone that just went into effect recently. And then when you saw photos of it, you had the whole street was just packed wall to wall with people. There was no 6 foot, it was more like 6-inch distancing. So that's why I would say, yeah, let's be flexible in allowing a restaurant to expand further outdoors up to a point, and then it stops there. I think that satisfies both ends of this.
Okay, Kelly, do you have anything else to add on anything else?
No, thank you very much.
You're good. Sherry Poppy, do you have anything else on the financial front? Are you there, Sherry?
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Gordon. Yes, we can hear you. Yes. Gordon, anything going on in Public Works other than being wonderful people?
Well, thank you for acknowledging Public Works Week. I really appreciate that. I know our folks will really appreciate it as well. And just wanted to say, obviously we had to cancel our Touch a Truck event this year. Our guys really enjoyed the Touch a Truck event and hope to bring it back next year so all the kids can enjoy the equipment. But I just want to say thank you to all the Public Works folks for keeping the city running smoothly. Thank you.
Great. Brian Cruz, Parks and Rec, what's going on? Busy?
Yeah, to say the least. All right, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, to say the least, this week is definitely another pivot point, as we were kind of chatting about before the meeting started. We got a lot of great information from the governor today, so we'll be spending the next couple of days talking about a plan, what portion of our contingency plan that we're going to be putting into place next week. So as I know that a lot of you are going to be contacted by the public, I'm watching my inbox fill up at the minute. I would probably just suggest we put out a public notice on social media and the website. It's just a really quick wrap up of where we're at right now. And it's just basically our statement of we are taking in the information from the governor at the same time the public is. And although we've got a couple of plans in place, we're not getting that information necessarily a couple of days in advance. So folks are asking us if the pool's open on May 26th. We're putting those plans together right now. And as David mentioned earlier, and I appreciate his compliments, we obviously laid off a number of staff and we need to talk about bringing them back. And regardless, we're just excited to get the doors back open again and get our people back at work. So we're going to be working hard on that. And I would probably estimate that next week you're going to see a lot of information roll out from Parks and Rec to kind of just lay out that plan. And that goes from tennis to playgrounds to shelters to the recreation center to the sports center, et cetera. I was also going to mention too, if you've been receiving any questions about memberships and the new membership fees, we're hoping to wrap that discussion up as well too, and inform you as what our plans are with the membership. Whether our plans were just basically to pause memberships, and then further discussion about, if you remember, our new membership fees, which were approved by council in December, were initiated for May 1st. They were supposed to be started back up. So we're going to put together a plan, and I think that's more so a fairness issue or a concern from our end for our patrons. So we're going to put together a plan that works well for the patrons and doesn't necessarily put them out when they originally come back to a facility that may or may not be exactly like it was when they left, based on occupancy restrictions we have. And then just one final little update. Gordon gave me some good news a couple weeks ago. The Hunt House project, you will likely see starting up fairly soon. You will see it probably not in its best in the next couple weeks when they begin to fumigate, and you see a nice big large tarp go over it. So that'll probably be, Gordon, correct me if I'm wrong. You can just unmute and just say, Brian, you're incorrect. But that should be within the next month or two that we see that process. And then they'll begin the bidding for the actual redevelopment and construction to repair any damage that the bug caused. But it's very, very likely that there will not be any programming or events at the Hunt House this year, just because that process will probably be a little bit lengthy. I just wanted to give you a quick update on the Hunt House as well. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie Kipper, anything?
No, nothing this evening, Your Honor. Thank you.
Jamie?
Nope, I don't have anything tonight. Thanks.
Chief Theaters?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor. Thank you.
Scott Knoll, who is muted, but he unmuted.
Just briefly, Your Honor, like David said, this entire week is National Police Week. It dates back as far back as John F. Kennedy. So it's been going on for quite a long time. Tomorrow, the governor specifically stated that it was the day for Ohio. The outpouring of support we've gotten from the community this week is just, it's crazy. Every single day I have somebody call in and they want to cater food to us. I'm not talking just a couple pizzas. I'm talking bringing hundreds of dollars worth of pulled pork and macaroni and cheese. And I mean, I would imagine most of my staff has probably gained 10 pounds this week. So the outpouring of support has been really appreciated by all my people. And then finally, I know we touched on this briefly last council meeting, but our birthday parties are totally done now. I'll give you some numbers. I know we talked briefly about some numbers last time, but I'll give you some updated numbers. We did 84 birthday parties in 30 days. Our social media, just the Blue Ash page, got about 25,000 hits on our videos that we put up. And then the 4 major news stations in Cincinnati, all of their videos got about another 100,000 hits. So I'd specifically like to thank Chris and his crew who went with us on every single one of them. The Ohio State Highway Patrol, some of those parties. We had 6 or 7 state troopers with us. And finally, the Hamilton County Park District, they went with us on all of them. So, I mean, it was a team effort. We couldn't have done it without our partners. And we got some really, really good feedback from the community, but we are all done now. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Pacheco.
Just wanted to wish all of you a happy Memorial Day, Memorial Day weekend, and thank those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country to experience our freedom. So thank you.
All right, so let's go through council. Councilperson Zerwanka, you want to start off?
Well, I just want to reiterate another big thank you to Gordon and his crew, because, you know, most people don't understand. Well, obviously they probably do understand that due to a lack of traffic, you get a lot more done. And I'm sure the crews have been very busy making hay out of the time with a lack of traffic. So nice job. That's all I have, Mayor.
I'm sorry, Councilman Capelli. Jeff, you got anything?
Yeah, just a couple quick things. We have nearly 300 views of our prior council meeting. It's excellent. Great to see that so many citizens are watching us when they have the chance. And it just shows that people are very interested in accessing us in multiple ways. Second, I'll reiterate what others have said. Thank you to the Blue Ash employees who have kept the city functioning very well in the last couple months. And also thank you to workers in the city of Blue Ash at places like Kroger who have kept society functioning very well the last couple months and keeping us fed. It's just very noteworthy that more people are talking about how much weight we've gained the last couple months than how much food we haven't been able to find. And it's really a testament to both city employees and all other employees for all the work that's been done recently. And then just the last thing is regarding the budget memo that we got. I appreciate the city manager for giving us an update on that. It's obviously very important we stay on top of the budget. Just one question I have on that is the conclusions, or I'll say the predictions that were given showed that our revenue loss for this would come in at less than 10%, which is actually very good and much better than some of the other local governments have projected. So I'm just curious what gives us cause to have so much to believe that we're going to have much better numbers coming in than others, especially just in light that most of our city employees or most of the employees in Blue Ash don't live in Blue Ash, and so if they're working from home, we're not going to see a lot of earnings tax revenue.
Yeah, well, two things. When we were describing the hit, we weren't describing the percentage loss. We were talking about the net. So remember, we were making operational gains by reducing some operations. So that's number one. Number two, no, we are not predicting 10%. In fact, the numbers we gave you state it could be as high as 25% in May, but that is only on the earnings tax part, which is a significant part, but there's still some other more stable funds. Real estate funds won't vary, and other sets of funds, as I said before, typically lag. They may hit us later in the year or next year, and so that's why you see that. But I don't know what you meant by where you calculated 10%, but that isn't the assumption when we were giving you some dollar amount. That's kind of the net effect of everything.
Okay, nothing else.
Great. Councilman Leet.
Well, there's a lot I could say. Just to pick up on the numbers that Jeff brought up, there were 300 views, but there was almost 150 of them that were the same view. There's not a lot of unique IP addresses. Meaning there's a lot of people clicking and watching it over by themselves. And the average view is only about 6 minutes long. So, and in our annual report, there's only been 16 views of that. So, you know, before we start tooting our horn over this video stuff that we're doing right now, let's make sure we get our numbers right. And Dave and Kelly, I think you guys had some great ideas about the Alliance Road thing. I think that's a great idea. And Scott and Chris and Brian and Perry, Gordon, you guys, everybody's doing a great job, and thank you so much, and stay well, everyone.
Thank you, Joe. Councilwoman Yazbek-Schweeter.
Well, I certainly want to thank everyone at the administration for making all the adjustments needed with the COVID situation, and also being open to get creative and help some of our restaurants here in Blue Ash, because certainly 2 months of being closed and many of our restaurants who carry out is not what they do. It's you know, it's not something that's part of their business. I'm really happy to see that, and I hope they're able to rebound and stay in business and bring their workers back. So, but I just want to thank everybody for, you know, everything they're doing.
Thank you. Councilwoman Schneider.
Yeah, I'd also just like to thank administration and employees as well for being flexible. And I think in light of COVID, being open and flexible, because everyone's life has drastically changed. But even beyond that, as the economy changes, as work styles change, staying on top of those trends and thinking about future uses, I think makes Blue Ash really strong to continue to thrive and stay on top of those. So thank you for thinking about those things and adjusting, you know, during a pandemic, but also just as life changes, adjusting to that as well. So, and then as things do start to reopen, just everyone continue to stay safe and cautious where needed.
Great, thank you. Vice Mayor Javari.
Just like everybody said, I just want to have one word, is just administration has done a phenomenal job. And I salute to the administration under the David and Kelly. They have done a very good job. And Gordon has done a very good job towards answering all the questions in Peppermill Farm. I mean, they are just really ponding on him for so many reasons and so many ways, and he has answered all of them very calmly and very collectively. So I admire him also. So that's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Just a couple things. Going on to the traffic corridor project. This is a project, Hunt Plainfield, Peppermill, Ronald Reagan Highway. We've had several different organizations, American Structure Point, the Blue Ash Public Works Department, the OKI Regional Council of Governments, and the Ohio Department of Transportation, and all their associated civil engineers, traffic engineers, and architects. And they've designed and reconfigured and tweaked this traffic corridor over the last 3 years. And these experts are all in agreement that the final and complete design will safely decrease congestion and pollution. And it hurts me that so many Peppermill residents have articulated that they don't agree with the experts and they don't like the design. They prefer to eliminate, redesign, or postpone the project that abuts their subdivision. I can promise you that every council person and every city staff member has listened, has talked with residents, has read all their correspondence, has studied and restudied the traffic reports, the engineering reports, the design reports, and has asked countless questions. I am personally convinced that the experts will leave us with a safe, calm, quieter, less polluted, and less congested region. So if anybody has any other comments on that subject, please say something now. Seeing nobody, I also want to give a special
Mark, I do
thanks.
just want to say,
I'm sorry, who?
sorry, I do just want to quickly say something about,
Okay.
some of the comments that have come through about, us being really insensitive, pushing this forward during COVID, and just, reminding that it's a project that's been going on for years, and it's not something that we're being insensitive to and taking advantage of the time. It has already been approved and voted for. It seems like there's a misconception that we are continuing to vote for it, but there is, just being clear that it's not up for vote right now. It has already been approved in the past. So just, I think there are misconceptions out there with how this project is moving forward. So I just wanted to clear that.
Yes, thank you. And the only thing is, though, if 4 council members really felt like we had not done our due diligence and wanted to stop this project, that is an option. So that's why I asked if anybody had any comments. So not seeing any. I did want to give also a special thank you to especially David, Kelly, and Sherry. You are the envy of a lot of communities. Your conservative fiscal policy over all the years that I've had any involvement of the city has really come to bear during COVID-19. And we are really lucky. We're lucky to have you, and we're lucky that you have the department heads that have been able to run the city beautifully with some significant budget reductions already. And a special thank you to all our first responders, including Public Works. And if I have nothing else on my agenda, we're going to move to executive session. We're going to move to executive session for some personnel matters to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official. Do I have a motion to go into executive session? Second. Please call the roll.
Second.
Vice Mayor Javari,
Yes.
Councilman Capell,
Yes.
Councilman Leet,
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider,
Yes.
Councilwoman Yasbeck Sweeter,
Yes.
Councilman Zerwanka,
Yes.
Mayor Serkin,
Yes.
7 yeses.
All right, we're meeting, everybody. We're meeting up at council chambers. I have disinfected pens.